Hello everyone, and welcome to my Days of Our Lives official. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Abigail informs Chad in the Horton living room that she has a memory of something. Chad departs to make sure Julie keeps the kids busy upstairs, and Abigail worries about what she's doing to him and practices her response. Chad asks her excitedly what she recalled when he gets back. Abigail claims that while he spoke his wedding vows, something inside of her was moved and she was reminded of her own. Chad snatches her in his arms. It fulfills his prayer. Kayla calls Steve at the hospital to inquire about his fruitless meeting with Clyde. She can't help but reaffirm that she won't take Abigail's DNA test without getting her permission and to tell you so. After hanging up, she runs into Jada, who alerts her to the fact that Rafe is attempting to check out against medical recommendation out of concern for Gabi. Jada heads out to join the hunt for Connie after Kayla promises to give him a sedative. The DiMera living room contains a bloodied fireplace poker, which EJ finds. His eyes search the area and fall upon the ajar secret entrance. EJ ducks through the open door. Gabi and Melinda fight and shout in the wine cellar downstairs. Gabi prays in Spanish while the bomb counts down to 2 minutes, then interprets for Melinda. Just as the bomb goes off, EJ approaches the door. He is knocked unconscious as EJ flies back against the wall. He awakens and struggles to stand. Inside the cellar, a fire breaks out, leaving Gabi comatose beneath the debris. Stefan calls her repeatedly in her room above the pub, but an enraged Ava ignores him. Stefan begins to apologize profusely to Ava on her voicemail while at the bistro, but he ultimately chooses to apologize in person. In the meantime, Connie visits Ava in her room to confront her about calling her out on her fake CV. She has already ensured that Melinda would never again disparage her, and now Ava won't either. Connie takes a knife out. Stefan knocks on the door as Ava tries to talk Connie down. Fortunately, Connie has him next on her list. When Ava shouts for Stefan to go, Connie orders her to invite him inside while holding a knife to her throat. Stefan walks in and looks around. "Oh, God," he sneers. Abigail quivers as she hesitantly read Abby's wedding vows in the Horton living room. Chad, who is crying, finds it unbelievable. She couldn't possibly have known such words if she hadn't been with him that day. Though he is aware that their past won't return, this gives him the greatest sense of hope since learning she is still alive. Reluctantly, Chad answers a call and leaves the room. Abigail collapses into the couch in agony. Mark writes Abigail a note at the hospital regarding his encounter with Clyde. Approaching him, Kayla inquires about Abigail's DNA test. He swears that he kept it in his line of sight. That woman is unquestionably her niece because it was not manipulated within any manner. Jada enters the DiMera family's living room after smelling smoke. She notices the open doorway and the bloody fire poker. Heading into the underground, Jada draws her gun. EJ puts down a fire extinguisher and uses his suit jacket to smother the last bit of flame in the middle of the smoke downstairs. Out among the debris, he sees Melinda. Still strapped to the chair, she is conscious. As she begs him to assist Gabi, she chokes. He runs to Gabi, but she ignores his prodding. When Jada gets there, she frees Melinda from her sling. EJ runs outside holding Gabi in his arms to take her to the hospital, fearing she has suffered a brain injury. As she reveals to a bewildered Stefan her vendetta and loyalty to Lee, Connie keeps her knife to Ava's throat. She must permanently quiet Ava before moving on to Stefan. Stefan attempts to shift all the guilt onto himself in an attempt to persuade Connie to release Ava. Then he tries something different, slandering Lee, which makes Connie throw her knife at him. Connie throws her knife up and swings it at Stefan. Abigail phones Mark while she's by herself in the Horton living room, telling him she reads Abby's wedding vows to Chad. They were in a box of souvenirs that Abigail had given her. She regrets it, feeling even more cruel. Their mother's life is in jeopardy, which Mark finds upsetting as well. When Chad returns carrying the news of the DiMera mansion explosion, Abigail hangs up. When Kayla arrives in Gabi's hospital room, she is unconscious. She explains to EJ that the CT scan she requested was merely a precautionary measure to rule out a brain bleed. It's time for him to return home and rest. EJ won't go until he is certain she is all right. Gabi opens her eyes and wonders what went wrong. Jada sits Melinda down at the DiMera chessboard, giving her water as she coughs. Jada is so sorry she wasn't discovered sooner. Melinda wonders if they can trace Connie's phone while maintaining a brave face. Jada informs her that she gave it up for a burner. Melinda recalls that when Connie departed, she snatched Gabi's phone. Jada believes they could get the break they need if they track that phone. Melinda's ambulance arrives. Gabi is lying in a hospital bed and she reaches for EJ's hand while he is sitting by her side. In her hospital room by herself with EJ, Gabi calls herself a fool for putting her faith in Connie. EJ reassures her that it isn't her. EJ gives her a gentle grip on the hand as she describes feeling like she was going to die among the smoke and debris. She acknowledges that EJ arrived right on schedule. Placing her other palm over his, she gives him credit for saving her life. Following her knife wound to Stefan's arm, Connie flees from Ava's chamber. As she tends to Stefan who is bleeding, Ava replies, "You saved my life." Connie walks out of the pub, and Jada follows. She tells Connie to put down the knife as she points her revolver. Editors have independently selected all of the goods and services that are listed. On the other hand, Soaps.com might get paid a commission for orders made through its retail links, and the retailer might get some data that can be audited for bookkeeping purposes. At last, Days of Our Lives has provided us with a reason for Mark and his sister, Abigail, whose true identity is still a mystery to us, to pursue Chad. Days of Our Lives finally revealed yesterday that the Green's mother is not only alive but also being held captive by Clyde, clearing up a significant amount of uncertainty regarding their parents' status. Her oldest children are forced to cooperate with Clyde's scheme to pretend that Abigail is back, get her married to Chad, and seize the entire DiMera fortune because he is the one controlling her life. We're still figuring out a couple things, like how fake Abigail would manage to do that given that Chad doesn't even have access to the whole inheritance. At least now we know why all of this is taking place. But now that the existence of the enigmatic Mrs. Green has been confirmed, we can't help but wonder whether there's more to this story than meets the eye. To be more precise, is the person holding Clyde prisoner someone who has already been on the canvas? Otherwise, the show would be taking a big risk by assuming that we would be invested in the lives of new people in a new family who have a new mother that Clyde is kidnapping. New characters frequently turn out to have some sort of covert relationship with people who are already present. That used to imply that Stefano had another secret child, but we're going to assume that the mother figure for Abigail isn't one of the Phoenix's long-lost children. Because that would render Chad's situation completely incorrect. However, there's still a chance that the enigmatic Mrs. Green and another prominent family in the community, like Marlena's, are connected to the DiMeras. How is that possible? Now, allow us to tell you the story of Trista Evans, Marlena's cousin, who was portrayed by the legendary Barbara Crampton in the past. She visited Salem in the 1980s, fell in love with Eugene Bradford, got married to him, and then became a victim of Andre DiMera, aka the Salem Slasher. Her murder actually bore a striking resemblance to Abigail's. She was assassinated for knowing too much, just like Abigail. Trista discovered inconsistencies in Stefano's purported death at the time since, unlike a reporter, she was a nurse in her instance. As the Salem Slasher, he gave Andre the order to knife her to death since he couldn't have anyone report him in. That sounds a lot like what happened when Abigail discovered Clyde was running a drug ring, doesn't it? But perhaps, just possibly, Stefano gave in and resurrected Trista with a new face, wiping all her memories and giving her a new name and some deranged act of loyalty to the cousin Marlena, with whom he has always been infatuated. He would have removed the threat and given her the freedom to live her life, well, a life, without ever coming into contact with him again. She might have married and had 4 children with the father of the Green siblings. She might have been a little older to have given birth to Aaron and Felicity, but the children might have been adopted. The 2 younger ones and the 2 older ones are very different in age. Perhaps that's where Clyde got the inspiration from. He is a man with, to be honest, astonishing resources who is vying for the DiMera money and has made everyone submit to him, including EJ and Stefano. He had the option to look into Stefano's wrongdoings, figure out what had happened to Trista, and then consider using the same narrative to Abigail and Trista's daughter. Thus, the Green siblings would be Marlena's second cousins. Alternatively, is it first cousins distant? In either case, Marlena would have a whole new family in town when this all comes out, and they would be discreetly tying themselves to one of the biggest names in the daylight. Perhaps we're making progress, but there needs to be a link between the person on canvas and the rest of the community. What good would this do otherwise? In addition, we are all aware of the writer's penchant for reinventing historical figures. What do you think? Will we ever get to know the enigmatic mother of the Greens, or is this whole thing just coincidental?